Thanks so much for coming in. You've got Councillor Summer behind you on Zoom, and
hello.
Hello. And obviously the rest of us are all on deck. I'm not sure you've been given an idea of time-wise, but 10 minutes, 6 or so minutes of presentation, less if needed, and we can open up the floor to any questions that might be needed. So, over to you, whenever you're ready.
Fantastic, thank you. So thank you very much for your time this morning. We are committed to ending homelessness and addressing the housing affordability issue that exists in our region. So, Charlie Bird, the Chief Development Asset Officer with Beyond Housing, and Merrin is our Project Manager and also registered architect as well. I'd like to commence by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land of which we are on, past, present, and emerging. I suspect you already know a lot about Beyond Housing, but just to recap, we are the largest housing organisation in the Goulburn and Murray region. We stretch all the way from Wodonga through to Shepparton. We have over 700, within about 2 years' time, that'll be over 800 properties as well. And we are the main homelessness, delivering a whole range of services. We help people stay in private rentals through to helping people who are sleeping rough as well. So there's a housing crisis across the country, and that is front and centre here in Shepparton as well. So in the last financial year, nearly 1,500 people are presented to our offices, and over 2,000 people we provide services to as well. And one thing which strikes or hits home with Shepparton is the demand for affordable housing in Shepparton, double what is currently available to stock the housing. So we deliver affordable, livable, maintainable homes. And what you see here is where so Mary and I, we're part of the housing delivery team. And the pie chart there shows where our funding sources come from. And what is striking about this is half it comes from a philanthropic foundation, which is absolutely incredible, and just under half from the Victorian government, out from the federal government as well. And one of the key challenges we face is around the lack of affordable, suitable land, which is close to services, sets people up for success. And we see this opportunity here at High and Rowe Street as a great opportunity.
Thanks, Charlie. Yeah, so as Charlie mentioned, the site has really great potential to be a well-designed, well-located, high-rise project in the central part of Shepparton. So this would afford great amenity to everyone that lives in that area, obviously close to services as well as green spaces, medical, education and training. So we see this site as great potential for people living there. They wouldn't have to rely on their car as much, and also they obviously have all those services at their front door. So we recently participated in an event, and this was with the Committee of Greater Shepparton and Melbourne University, and it was highlighted that there is this really great demand for diverse housing stock in Shepparton. So we're talking executive, key worker, social, youth, affordable housing. So for us, we were told at this workshop that the professionals looking to relocate to the area, 80% of those are looking for apartments or townhouses within the CBD rather than houses in the outer fringes. So this was something that really I think is important to talk about today. So looking at like a high rise that consists of 1 and 2 bedroom apartments would be something that could help solve that problem. And it would mean that people are located close to their work places as well as close to amenity and services. So for us, we have really strong existing relationships with many peoples, organisations and services across the whole of Victoria. A project of this scale would really be a big collaborative effort with ourselves and some of our potential project partners. But for us, the return on investment for social housing is much less than a developer-led project. So we would really need to look at some of these key inputs here at the initial stages. And some of these include, the land at an affordable price, potential project partners, also support of council, help getting the projects through planning, good design is really critical, as is engaging with the community from the outset. So there's no real identified ideal mix of public and private housing stock in the council strategy or by state government. So I think, to me, the success of a community can be based on how people embrace diversity and how they help the vulnerable people. So personally, I've had first-hand experience in living in a multi-storey development in Melbourne where we have a very communal approach to living and we embrace this diversity. So public housing stock was mixed in with privately owned apartments as well as social housing and key worker housing. So here we really embrace this idea of having all sorts of people, diverse people in the building, and it was a real community feel, which meant that I was first a neighbour with some of these people and then became a very good friend to some very vulnerable people. And personally, this made me question what I did, and I've actually changed professions to help people and to provide more housing to people in need. So we would kind of look to a model like this if we were successful in looking at the site, where we may allocate a certain percentage of the dwellings to social housing and then a certain allocation.
We're at 6 minutes now, so.
Okay.
So, I mean, if
They finish up?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So we would look to kind of a mixed model where you have private, key worker and social housing. And just to quickly touch on, this is an exemplar apartment project in a regional location where they do that. So it's a mix of 1, 2 and 3 bedroom tenancies where a 20% allocation is to social housing. So 6 homes in this building were allocated to Housing Choices Australia, and this was completed in 2022 in Ballarat.
So in closing, we congratulate and commend council on engaging the community on this parcel of land, and it'll take strong leadership to address the housing affordability issue in our community. Thank you.
Great, thanks so much. Any questions, councillors? Bern?
Thank you. When you say social housing, you don't mean DHHS?
So when we talk about social housing, we're talking about beyond housing, social housing, not the department's public housing.
Yeah. And how much priority will locals get, the ones on the waiting list already here? Are we bringing people from Melbourne, or are we prioritising local people?
Are you referring to the social housing component?
Social housing component.
So
our waiting list is huge, and we'd want to make a dent in ours, not necessarily somewhere else.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So what we do with all of when new housing becomes available, we look at the Victorian Housing Register and we look at what is the neighbourhood that it's going into and the type of development, and then who's best suited to go into there, and then what we aspire towards having a mix of people that work well together.
That doesn't quite answer my question. The local waiting list for social housing, are they the people who are going to be in there?
So typically it would be the people who are looking to Shepparton would be people from Shepparton rather than someone from Adelaide or somewhere like that.
So there's no actual criteria or component that would favour people from Shepparton. It's just whoever applies and find the right suited person.
I'd have to defer to my colleagues in the housing services team that actually go through that in more detail. But my understanding, so my expectation would be that someone in Shepparton would naturally have higher priority over someone coming from Adelaide or further afield.
Well, that would be my expectation too, which is why I'm asking you if those systems are in place to ensure that, but it just doesn't sound like it is.
So I wouldn't assume that they're not in place. I would take away that that's an area which I don't work closely in.
Oh,
so
okay.
100% guarantee that is the case, but my expectation is that is what would occur.
Okay, thank you. And the other component that I wanted to an architect actually, a lot of these designs we're getting are quite stark, concrete, repetitive buildings. You see in other countries like Amsterdam or all over the place with their high rises, they're full of character. If we were going to build something in the middle of town, you'd think that aesthetics should suit the area and lift the amenity, even shutters on the blinds or something cute, but these concrete boxes just aren't all that, like, there's not a lot of pride in it, I guess.
Yeah, I definitely think that in what we do, we would engage an architect or work with a developer to make sure the design was very appropriate to the setting and to ensure that it fits in with the neighbourhood character. There's various things you can do with materials as well as you said, blinds. Some of the projects that I know really well even have greenery growing up the facades and have operable windows, so it's engaging with the street in that way. Other projects use things at the ground floor, like big archways that open up onto the street too. So I definitely think that we can incorporate and ensure that we have a good design for this project.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any more questions, councillors? Just very quickly, do you mind just going back to that Nightingale model?
Yeah.
To double check the numbers. So that is something that you guys believe would be appropriate for that parcel land, that sort of mixed use type of development?
Yeah, so I guess when we're talking to this, we're saying that this is an exemplar apartment building. So it's a multi-storey building that's located in Ballarat. There's commercial tenancies on the ground floor, and then the remainder of the building, it's 5 stories, is apartments. So a mix of 1, 2, and there's 2 3-bedroom apartments in that project. And as you can see, Fern, just relating to what you were saying, does it fit with the local context? You can see there's a big old commercial building, brick building next door, so they've used brick material there to try and reflect that, and they've opened up that street to make it engage with the street setting and make it really inviting for people to come in and out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Can I just, only on Friday we undertook a tour of the Nightingale housing places with members of the committee for Greater Shepparton. So, yeah.
Very good. All right, guys, thanks so much for coming in. We really appreciate it. So,
Councillors, thank you, officers.
good morning, Ollie. Yeah, how are you?
Very well, and yourselves?
Thank you.
That's good.
All right, please feel free to take a seat if you like. If you're not aware of the time-wise, we allocate about 10 minutes and, 6 or so minutes of presentation if you've got one, and then we could open up the floor to any questions, but it's up to you how you want to utilise that 10 minutes.
Yep, I really just want some answers.
What are your questions?
Why does it seem so important to put affordable housing right in prime real estate, right in the heart of the city?
The specifics of that, if you want. Cole, did you want to answer that specifically, or Geraldine? Otherwise, I can answer that if you want.
It's not. We're not here to answer questions. It's about you presenting.
This is my point of view, and I would like an answer, please. That's why I'm here, because I don't seem to be able to get an answer any other way, and that's why I booked in. So if somebody could answer me, that would be great.
Submission process. Obviously, you can come here and give your reasons why you do or don't want to have affordable housing, or any other suggestion that you feel could be appropriate for that parcel of land. There's many strategies that I can send to you that justify the reasons to have affordable or social housing or mixed use take place in the CBD, all the positive reasons. But you're entitled to have an objection to that if you want to. You can put that forward today and we can take that into consideration.
I've already put one in.
You can verbalise it if you like as well.
Well, I'd strongly object to it. There is never a city or a town that has affordable units, flats, whatever, in the heart of the city that does well. I'm sorry to say, and I'm not a discriminative person, but I fail to see why it has to be in prime real estate when there's a lot of other choices of people or businesses or what can I say, 5-star accommodation who are going to contribute to the town. People who are in affordable residential, when they're in the city, they tend to be destructive. We've had many, many different businesses in Shepparton throughout the last nearly 50 years. And I can promise you, we deal with people on a daily basis. There is not one person that I am aware of that lives in affordable in-city residential areas that contribute to the community. I fail to see why such prime, expensive real estate needs to be occupied by affordable housing when there's so many other options.
Yeah, no, thank you for your thoughts. Councillors, do we have any questions for Nolene?
Just a quick question, Nolene. So if you don't believe it should go there, where would be your suggestion to be for us to consider a location?
Well, my suggestion would be still close to town, but somewhere where there's bus access. Certain no trams or, you know, local trains. So if there's bus access, I'd be delighted for that. First of all, the land is less expensive. You can fit more on those pieces of land. So therefore you can accommodate far more affordable housing locations. And the other thing is those people who want to be destructive have time to think about what they're going to do by the time they get to town. If they've got to walk or if they've got to get a taxi or they've got to get a bus, they have time to actually think about it. In my point of view, it's a deterrent. Now, the perfect example, my mum lives in Tenterfield, which is a quiet little aged care kind of location. The minute they put affordable housing close to her, she started to have the doorbell ring at 2 o'clock in the morning. They started to ring bash on the door. We had to have the cops come past on a consistent basis. We've had the same problem in Seymour. We've got the same problem in Benalla. We've got 5 different laundromats and they're in different locations. I believe I'm quite qualified in speaking the way I'm speaking because we deal with homeless people, and I don't have any problem with homeless people, but they take advantage of what they can take from other people. They get everything given to them, everything's available to them, but they still think it's good to come and pinch things that cost us money.
All right. Was there anything else?
No.
No, very good. Well, if there's no further questions, we thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate your thoughts.
Well, I'd appreciate some answers to my question. If somebody can send me information on why it's important to have affordable
We can
housing
get that straight.
but in the heart of the city, I would appreciate that.
We can get that information sent to you, no problem at all.
Excellent. Thank you very much for your time.
No. Rose, how are you?
Shane?
That's good. Good to see you.
Hey, Mr.
No, that's okay. Shane's fine. How you been?
Yeah, flat chat, but that's,
Not sure if you guys mentioned to you on the way in, near enough to 10 minutes to present. We'll try and get some questions in that time, but if we finish a bit earlier, we can have any questions from the councillors and help you with your submission. So over to you whenever you're ready.
fine. Good morning, councillors and council staff too, by the look of it. I'm Ros Knaggs. I live in Shepparton and have lived in Shepparton for over 40 years now, and I'm quite passionate about where I live. Just around 12 months ago, council received over 700 objections from the Shepparton community with regard to developing a multi-storey social housing building on the car park of Nixon and Maud Street. Yet now there's discussion about the placing affordable housing on the Rowe High Street car parks. So I asked several people who presented their objections to you 12 months ago if they'd again go through the process. The most common reply was, obviously this council doesn't listen, so I'm not going to waste my time. But being an optimistic person, I'm here and I'm hoping that you will listen. And over the last 18 months, I've had a great chance to read many council policies and papers, and I've learnt that you can support or negate most proposals by plucking quotes from the policies or papers. And in one of these papers, as a council, you predict that the population in the city of Shepparton in 2030, it'll be 80,000 people. So there'll be a greater need for parking. So by giving, leasing or selling car park space, you'll be reducing parking for the future. Over the last month, I've regularly been going past that Rowe High Street car park, and I'm finding that it's usually 2/3. And you presume that with the reinvigorated development in the mall, that more people are going to be attracted to the CBD for shopping, especially around Christmas time. So the Rowe High Street car park is essential for parking in the CBD. And then in another report to council, in reference to this car park, it states that by selling, leasing or gifting the land for social housing, it will compromise future potential opportunity for the site. So that, as the report suggests, it's imperative that you as councillors must consider what that site's best for future Shepparton people or Greater Shepparton people. It's time to explore other council-owned or government-owned sites for affordable housing. Alternative property sites that are available now. You've got the Mason Street site. We've got the showgrounds. There's a wonderful block in Archer Street. Each of these sites would also offer green space for residents, which they will not get on a car park site. Green space is important. We're not in Melbourne, we're in Shepparton. We have green space. A high density build for affordable housing is far from ideal. I've worked closely with people who've lived in affordable housing. Councillors around 25 years ago were involved in the neighbourhood renewal project in the north of Shepparton. So it was a really joint effort by a lot of people to improve the lifestyle for the people up in northern Shepparton. There was a high density affordable housing up there known as the ghettos. It was demolished as a result of this renewal. The buildings were deemed as being an unhealthy environment. And some of you will recall this. I believe Councillor Dobson was on council at that time. Some of you would have been very young children at that time. And some of you didn't even reside in Shepparton at that time. But the then councillors felt so strongly about changing the image of the area that all the streets were renamed. So now we've got Glory Way, Inspiration Street, Triumph Street, Champion Lane. We no longer have the ghettos. I encourage you to take heed of the councillors who sat here before you and stay away from high density builds. My husband Robin also objects to high density building on car parks, and he's not here today as he's got a board meeting. But I'd like to make you aware that he did apply to join the Affordable Housing Committee, but was unsuccessful. But on a brighter note, we were thrilled to be recognised by the Heritage Committee for our renovation on Maud Street. And we believe that we've enhanced the city CBD, just as the reinvigorated mall has done, and also the great bud lighting. I do not see a high density affordable housing building enhancing the CBD. I encourage you to remember that you're in a custodial position, and your stewardship needs to be what is best for all residents of Greater Shepparton, both current and future. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosanna. I appreciate that. We do have a question from Rowe.
Thanks, Ros. Just for clarification, are you aware of the area that we're talking about in terms of the car park?
Yes.
As in being the southeast corner?
Yes.
Not the actual, from High Street through, it's the other component where you'd be facing onto it.
Yes, I do.
That it could well be mixed housing and not just necessarily affordable housing, and it could be
sorry,
car park.
it did say affordable housing.
Correct. Yeah, but it could well be mixed housing. Yeah. Would that change your mind in terms of some of the objection that you have? No, probably not, because I don't think it's probably the right place for a high density building. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Thanks, bro. Councillors, do we have any other questions? Very good. Thanks so much for coming in, Rose. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning.
Morning.
Thanks for coming in. Just so you're aware, we try and allocate about 10 minutes.
Yep.
Patient, sort of half of that, and we can have some questions from councillors if need be. So ready to start when you are.
Good morning, councillors. My name is Donna Stone, and I'd like to object to the sale sale, lease or gift of land now known as the car park at High and Rowe Streets in Shepparton. Haven't done this before. I have an interest in the prosperity of this town. I was born in the Mooroopna Hospital, educated and raised a family in Shepparton. We have been property owners in Shepparton for over 45 years, with retail shops in High Street and flats in residential areas. As property owners, we were not notified of this proposal. I only became aware of the possible sale, lease or gift of the car park in High and Rowe Streets when clearing out the mail under the door of one of our vacant shops in High Street. Now, community housing. I support more community housing, and as a landlord, I am well aware of the acute shortage. We have been supporting long-term, low-income tenants in our flats in Shepparton for decades. However, this car park is not fit for residential purposes. A high-rise building in this location would not be suitable for community housing. There would be no green spaces, no open areas. It would not be a good living environment, and more car parks would be required for a residential planning permit, and where would they come from? This land is right in the middle of the CBD. Social housing should fit in with surrounding neighbourhood. If social housing is to be successful, it needs to be in the right location. It should be in or on the fringe of residential areas. Housing options. I would like to suggest an appropriate site would be the free car parking land on the south side of Ashenden Street, adjoining the Kmart car park on the residential fringe. There are 2 schools sitting waiting, which would be suitable for residential community homes with ample outdoor space and serviced by buses. Land in Archer Street near shops and buses would be suitable for residential homes with green space and open outdoor areas. There are other car parking areas on the fringe of the CBD, but these are just a few that come to mind. Parking. As shopkeepers from the 70s to the mid-90s, we watched Shepparton grow. Over the years, with the development of buildings in the CBD, car parking was essential to be provided by developers. If all land was to be built on, then the developer had to pay a fee per car park in lieu of the car parks not provided. The funds were paid to council were to be used to purchase land which the council would buy for the sole purpose of customer parking. This is such land. It has been a car park for over 30 years. This car park has been paid for by property owners of the CBD. Therefore, I do not think the council has the right to take it away from the owners and their shopkeepers, businesses, restaurants, shoppers and clients. During these years, the CBD had developed into a regional shopping destination, but now it is struggling, competing with the Big W complex, Kmart and the Coles complex, with large free parking areas. Maybe some of these car parks could be used. More than half the small shops in High Street are vacant at the moment. This area has never needed more people being able to access than ever before. Shopkeepers and business owners are trying to pick up after the closure and restructure of the mall and COVID-19. The CBD was severely affected. Meters in High Street deter shoppers from coming into the CBD. Parking fines are a problem for shoppers. This car park in question offers 3-hour parking, allows shoppers and clients to shop, attend appointments, and this should not be compromised. Tradesmen called to the CBD for work can park in this car park without having to worry about meters or getting a parking fine. Any development on this site would adversely affect the area and be detrimental to businesses. If a development was to go ahead, construction would affect car park closures and cause disruption. The businesses may just have to go through the mall, have just had to go through the mall closure. They don't need any more. Last Monday and Tuesday, I went into the High Street car park. It was full. This indicates the need for the car park, even on quiet days. The CBD needs more parking, not less. Unfortunately, there is no more land in the CBD, so why take this away? Once it is gone, it is too late. Where will more land for parking come from? Owners in the CBD are ratepayers and during development paid for this car park and should be considered. Parking is a big issue for the CBD and parks are scarce. There is plenty of residential land elsewhere, but no more land in the CBD. The value of this car park at current market value would be far too costly to develop for residential purposes when there is residential land sitting already. The use of this costly land would waste money, far more value could be achieved and more dwellings built on residential land waiting for redevelopment. Businesses can operate in Benalla Road and along Wyndham Street. There is parking all day with no parking meters. It is so hard for businesses in and along High Street because of the meters and the lack of parking. I would urge all councillors to vote no to any change to this vital car park.
Thank you so much. Appreciate your presentation. Councillors, do you have any questions?
Thank you, Donna. Just a point of clarification. Are you aware of what aspect of the car park that we're talking about?
Yes, it's the back. Yes, I realise.
Just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, I realise the whole car park's not going, but the fact that some is, and by putting more people in there, they're going to have more visitors, there's going to be more need for, that car park's going to be taken over effectively, a lot of it by residents, visitors, and it's just, I just think it's the middle of the CBD. I'm all for residents on top of, in fact, in High Street, I've already got one apartment upstairs. I've got flats in Shepparton. I mean, I'm not opposed to any sort of, even if it was normal housing, not low rental, I would be opposed to it because it's not the right place. I mean, as I said, I've watched Shepparton grow since the early 70s when I've left school at the end of 1960s, started business in early 70s and have watched and bought properties, still own properties here, don't intend to sell them, and most of them are low rental. I've got people living in flats in Balaclava Road that have, one lady's been there 12 years. She's on a pension. I've got another one living next door that's been there 7 years. Two of the others have been there either four or the other one is about 8.5 years. So it's not as if I'm against low rental housing. I mean, I'm all for it, but, you know, there's a place. I just think it would affect the CBD and it would affect the people putting them in. It's like tar and cement in there already. So.
Very good. Thank you, Donna. If there's no further questions from councillors, thank you so much for coming in. We appreciate it. Morning, guys.
Morning. Morning. How are we going?
I'll get you. G'day. Get you to introduce yourself.
Lindy, what have you been up to?
Lindy, well.
I've only got 10 minutes and I swear the story's longer.
Socceroos.
Jane's not joining this morning?
No, she's an apology. Yeah.
Very good. No worries, guys. Thanks for coming in. We appreciate it. I'm sure you're aware, 10 minutes. Obviously, if your presentation be near enough to half of that, then we might have some questions. So over to you when you're ready.
Yeah, so those that don't know us, Lee Findlay, Board Chair, Committee for Greater Shepparton.
Lindy Neuenhausen, CEO, Committee for Greater Shepparton.
So thanks for the opportunity. We put our submission in a month or so back or whenever they were due. The basis of what we'd come up with our submission was we did undertake consultation with some of our member base. So we've got 120 business members in our network, and a lot of those have got quite an interest on the housing and development front. So we do have a member group that we do consult with on these particular topics, and I suppose just high level, generally supportive of the concept of what's being put forward in terms of the Rowe St site. What's supported is a mixed use development, so it's certainly not, you know, one type bundled into that particular site. They would like to see a mix across there, and also not the expense of car parking. So that's high level where we sat. I'm going to let Lindy dive into a little bit more detail around some of the mixes that we're talking about, and
Go from there.
you go from there.
Okay, thanks. And we'd also encourage council, we see this as a really productive process for bringing to the surface there are opportunities that are around the city to explore housing. So going through this process, adding that transparency to what is available for consideration for development is important to community awareness, but also to potential investors and market interest in these opportunities. So very quickly, there's a couple of graphs and diagrams we included in our submission, and we feel they sum up pretty much what we've got to say and what's driving our thinking behind this one. And this is probably the standout. We did some quick analysis in the Planning Environment Act. So Colin's here, will probably correct me if I've got it wrong. But every year they publish, what the thresholds are for affordable housing. That's the big orange bar on this graph for a single and for a family household in regional Vic. And when I put these figures in front of Lee and others, and I just said to them, how many people on your payroll would be earning at or under those levels? The red dot shows the median income for a single household and a family household in Greater Shepparton. So we are concerned that at times the conversation about capital A affordable housing gets hijacked. What we're really talking about is housing that's affordable in a market like Shepparton, and that need for more diversity, more variety of housing that provides entry points for a variety of people in the community is really important. The other that we've picked up on, and this is really just to show what's happening at the other end of the market, and in particular what we can affect affordable housing at both ends. Supply obviously has an impact on what affordability is in the overall market. And here's just a quick snapshot of the data that comes through from our Community Connector program that we deliver in partnership with council. We're talking upwards of 60–70% of people moving to the region for professional roles would like an apartment or a townhouse in the CBD. And so what we can do to foster this kind of accommodation option is a terrific start to both boosting the economy and solving some of our housing needs. And this is the other trend that I think is worth noting, is the dramatic drop in the mix of, the reshaping of the mix of housing households in Greater Shepparton. And this comes from your website. I love the data on your website. And as you can see, couples with children has dropped incredibly. And in the next couple of years, the number of lone person households, it will be the most common household in Greater Shepparton. And do we have a housing mix that can support that? So really talking about how the demographics of Shepparton is changing and how we respond to that at all price points across the market. And then finally, the Community Connector program engaged a consultant to do a key worker housing analysis. And from this, we took an indication of what the current housing mix is in Shepparton and what the future housing mix might need to be given the shifts of housing or households that we're seeing. And obviously the things to note there is the significant growth in the appetite for single bedroom apartments at all price points across the market, and particularly at entry levels. And then also the contraction in the need for 3-bedroom. Now that doesn't mean that someone who's in a 3-bedroom on their own doesn't want to keep that for the extra bedrooms for the kids that, when they come home and visit. Just saying that there's an indication there that at the smaller housing typologies in the city, there is insufficient, we need more, and initiatives like this one are a great way to start getting those to happen. So thank you.
Great, guys. Appreciate the presentation. Councillors, do we have any questions? No.
Can we get a copy of that?
Will we?
I think you have.
Be up on the website.
Yeah. You've read it all, bro.
Very good, guys. Appreciate you coming in. Thanks so much.
Thank you, and good luck with it.
Thank you.